it's kind of a no-brainer to work with these guys. Like they're young, they're hungry, they're go-getters, they're smart as hell. They know the space front and back.
I knew it was like a perfect fit immediately. Xavier, already in the bodybuilding scene, he used our product, he understands them. I didn't have to, rework emails. We reduced it down to 20 from 30, and we immediately saw unsubscribes, bounce rate. It was all better while maintaining the revenue. As soon as we got on call with TVG and finished the call, me and Nate were ecstatic. Pretty much immediately, we were like, yeah, this is the right fit.
I'm here with Nate and Tristan of Gorilla Mind. Appreciate you guys taking the time today. If you guys could just do like a quick intro, both of you, your role, your company, your brand, what you guys are working on.
Hey guys, I'm Tristan, and I've been with Gorilla Mind for coming up on 8 or so years now. My role now is senior CRM and loyalty, and yeah, excited to chat with the TVG guys and Patrick here.
Yeah. So my name is Nate Hampel. Worked with Gorilla Mind for a couple of years now as the director of e-commerce. Kind of dabble in everything DTC related for mainly Shopify and Amazon. Also work closely with Tristan on the CRM front, making sure we've got everything lined up correctly for our customers on the Shopify side of things, and how that works in tandem with some of our other D2C channels as well.
Yeah, for sure.
TVG for a little while now, and it's been really awesome so far.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, so to set the scene, I guess I think we've been working with you for over a year, well over a year at this point. And I'm gonna kind of take us back to, because I was looking at my notes and everything from when we first got in touch. And I know, you guys are a large, successful brand. And one thing I appreciated about our initial conversations was like, we need to start focusing on, not just like what Klaviyo is telling us with revenue, but like, these more sophisticated metrics that you guys really care about, second purchase rate and lifetime value. And if you can remember, I know it's been a while, but what like initially led you to like looking for a new partner on the retention side? I think that would be helpful to kind of like get an understanding of that.
You want to take it, Nate?
Yeah, I think we can both. We both have our position on it, which very very similar positions. From my perspective, at the time we had a solid group that we worked with, and I think one of the overlying things or outlying things was getting somebody in that we could work with a little bit better, even with our kind of nimbleness, that helped us build out further in advance, to kind of be, like I said, nimble with how we grow and change as a company, then also make sure that we're kind of lined up to cover all the bases from a CRM perspective, outside of just like running campaigns. There's so much more to it than just running campaigns and firing off emails every day or every couple of days. There's a lot more than meets the eye that both TVG and I know Tristan work on like pretty closely, pretty intimately on a day-to-day basis, to make sure that like we're dialed in outside of just the campaigning aspect of it. And that was like one of the biggest things that we wanted to look for was someone that had a little bit better feel for and understanding for what entailed like the email marketing program for us, outside of just kind of clicking the button, making an email and clicking the button on a day-to-day basis. And Tristan too, I know you've got some feedback as well, so feel free to weigh in too.
Yeah, absolutely. The biggest thing for me, and I'm day to day with TVG and our email teams, and making sure all the campaigns are buttoned up and ready to go. And one of my biggest obstacles originally was that the gap a little bit with like the fitness education. Gorilla Mind is a very like scientific brand. Derek is at the head of that, and he pioneered that, and taking the products to the next level. So being as a brand, we need to be buttoned up on our knowledge of these products and the ingredients and the third party testing, and we're very particular about like the wording that we use. So when I'm, approving emails or, taking a look at a bunch of different drafts, oftentimes I had to like rework a complete email, or like I'd have to rewrite the entire thing because it just didn't fit our voice, or certain little details were just like incorrect, and I had to address that. So when looking at TVG, I knew it was like a perfect fit immediately because the guys, Xavier, for example, is already in the bodybuilding scene. He used our product, he understands them, and I don't expect them to be like supplement experts and be talking about like neurotransmitters and dopaminergic signaling and whatnot. But he knew quite a bit, and I was impressed with that. And it led into, once we were actually working with you guys, that I was I didn't have to, rework emails. And then that kind of goes back to, even just like the designs. Like the team that we worked with made great designs, but then it was just kind of hit or miss or something,
Mm-hmm.
And I loved the simplicity of, TVG's emails. All the fundamentals are there. They look great. They're simple. It's on brand, consistent across a lot of the, different emails. And just the review process was very, very smooth. So just having that trust, and knowing that you guys deal with a lot of fitness brands, and you had guys that were in the fitness scene and knew the athletes and the products, the formulas very well. That made me very confident. And then all of the processes going after that were great as well.
Appreciate that. Yeah, awesome. And what were like, you guys, and I remember this, like you guys had like you're saying, yeah, solid person group or whatever you're working with before. But like, what were some of the main objectives that maybe you guys were talking about internally? Like, what were some of those things that you really want to improve on the retention marketing side, kind of heading into our engagement, over a year ago?
Yeah, one of the main things was that we needed to get ahead. We had all of like the basics and the fundamentals, and all of the more like what you deem like the more necessary flows. There. But we never had like the chance to catch up and actually iterate on that, check the stats, check the analytics, A/B test, do all these things that got us to this point where we are now. And I'm sure you're going to get into it. With improving our LTV, improving that second purchase rate. We could never get there because we were always behind. And we were approving emails same day. And flow revamping took a while. Like it was like a 1 month project, just like revamping some of our flows. Whereas with TVG, as we went in there, I could kind of leave some of that to you guys, give the basics, and within like less than a week, all the flows are live and they're ready to go. They're all perfect. And they can own that, and I can trust them with that. So, a lot of those retention metrics weren't the primary objective at the time. It was more of an organizational goal to get ahead, to get organized, improve our processes so that everything could be faster. And that just wasn't there. And it wasn't getting done fast enough. Whereas with, now we know after working with you guys that, all of that stuff gets done very fast, that all the processes are very seamless, and easy to work with.
Awesome. And why did you ultimately decide to work with us? I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I assume you guys came through like a referral, or like somewhere, and you knew people in our network, or someone that was already working with us. But why did you guys ultimately make that decision and make that transition?
I think kind of Tristan had hit it a moment ago that we had vetted a handful of different agencies at the time. So it definitely wasn't just you guys that we ended up going with. I think you nailed it too, that there's the referral aspect of it, that I think word of mouth goes a long ways, especially with folks. It's a small industry, and then you guys have worked with some folks that we knew that were came like highly recommended, and folks that I really trust and things like that. But I think the other piece of it too is like it's really hard to find folks that like get the industry. Like for example, like we vetted some of these other brands that they truly were like, they might be very successful and good with a lot of their clients, but they're truly just email agencies, and they sell couches and beds and sheets, or upholstery or something, and they're really good at selling that with these generic email templates and things like that. But again, to Tristan's point, having to get somebody to plug and play and understand like anything about creatine or testosterone boosters or anything like that and nail it within like one or two iterations, is super, super hard to come by. I think the same can be said for, I mean, even hiring folks within the industry. It's always good to get like fresh blood, from outside the industry, which I'm always like big on. But also like there's something to be said for folks that have like done it, they live the lifestyle, things like that. And it's like, it's something you can't really replace. And so it's been like a humongous benefit, because like I'm in it, Tristan's in it, we've done shows and things like that. And like, we use the products day in and day out, and having somebody on the other end of it that knows exactly what we're going through, and probably even doing, more intense workouts than even we are, like goes a long way. So, shout out to Xavier and
that's Xavier, not
too.
me. For anyone watching this today, Xavier trains harder than all of us, which is who they work with on day to day. Yeah. No, yeah, that's awesome. And like, I think that's actually a good point, because, yes, of course we want to improve all these metrics, but like, email is just an absolute monster to manage. And what I'm hearing and what I remember is like, it was just like the last kind of like reactiveness that was happening on the email side. So I'd like to dive more into like, how we have supported you on day to day, and hopefully made your lives easier. So like, what has been the experience working with us day to day? Describe maybe our communication and collaboration with your team, and how that's been so far.
Yeah, the one thing that came to my mind immediately, and it kind of tacks on to what we were already talking about, was when we were looking for a brand, and ultimately one of the reasons why we decided to go with TVG was that any company can kind of like put together flows and put together campaigns and build the audiences, build the segments, whatever, but actually like building the strategy and like understanding, like when we do like a content email, for example, your team kind of understands like why we're actually like putting this out, and you guys are evaluating the analytics and whatnot, and they're able to like make decisions based on those analytics, and they're not just pushing buttons, right? Any team can do that, right? And it's great having a team of you guys that when we communicate a goal, you guys are already like putting it in place and figuring out like what we need to do. And in terms of like communication, the other thing that I wanted to mention too was just like simple little things like using Figma. We never used Figma. It was all through Slack. And just seeing all those emails out, just in a row, and it seems so basic, but we just weren't doing it. And, when we add that in there and we are able to like, utilize that platform to its full capabilities, communication is just a lot better. And then, anything that's, quick through Slack, everything like that. Meetings are always like very well put together. Everyone understands what the goals are and what the priorities are, and each meeting is discussing those. And we get great stats. Like Wisdom came out with a July performance report just recently, and we were just going through this minor test of reducing our sending. So we reduced it down to 20 from 30, and we immediately saw a big jump in not performance, but some of those metrics like unsubscribes and bounce rate. It was all better while maintaining the revenue that we were doing with more sends. And it's just great because when I heard about that goal, I was facilitating it, helping them like build out the calendar and putting those together, but I didn't even let them know that, make sure to, let me know what the stats are. I didn't even like expect to, know about that for a couple months. I was going to probably remember in October and then check in and be like, all right, hey, Paul, these metrics are great. But Wisdom was right on it. So, just getting those like real-time reports quickly like that, when, they see, the performance, either if it goes up or down or whatever it is, and we can make adjustments after. So, all the communication is really great.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And when it comes to, the big milestones or wins that you guys have identified, one of the things that fired me up, and, we were talking about this internally, was, I think it was Paul Young's message just about, second repeat purchase rate. If you can speak to that or any other wins that stand out to you throughout the last year plus of working together, that would be fantastic.
Nate, do you want to take it, or?
Yeah, I think there's probably a couple different. I'll say some stuff, and I know like Tristan, you've probably got a few up your sleeve as well. But I think kind of encompassing all of what we've just talked about too, in that like through the organizational kind of improvements, and then also like when we talk about the flows and how we got those built out. One of the early things that kind of I really looked at and really loved was that, like I mentioned before, where previously we were sending like all the time and it was all campaign driven, and we were like we'd hinge a lot of our revenue and a lot of our success just on those sends, and to the point that gets to like the repeat purchase rates, is that we've gotten to a point where some of these flows, and I'll say it like I would say like maybe not all the flows that we need to be built out are built out. Like there's still so much more to the Apple really, but up to now, like we've done such a good job with you guys, or you guys have done such a good job for us at getting us to a point where we're not so overly reliant on just the sends, and in saying to Tristan's point that like we can reduce the sends and still achieve like the amount of revenue that we need to deem successful for the email program, the CRM program itself. But also what I mean is like with those flows, a lot of these emails are like working for us like in the background, which with all the stuff going on, we have like a super lean team between me or myself, Tristan, Paul, as mentioned, some of the other folks on our team. Like we're super lean when it comes to the e-com D2C teams, and being able to both optimize like how we're built out, how these flows are running, and just generating, kind of like residual income for us, with all of these new customers is like been paramount to the success, both of TVG working with us. And then I think just in showing how well we're doing as a brand with our email program to like kind of our leadership team. I think that's like one of the biggest things for me was seeing that we could successfully kind of migrate the sending volume that we do so heavily on the campaigns and have a better split with the flows, like we're saying. That's been one of the best things that I've seen so far. And then also, again, to not to belabor it, but just the swiftness that comes with getting this stuff built out. The flows, like Tristan and I have built flows out ourselves, and it doesn't take. It takes quite a while, right? Like it's not a quick thing, and with so much so much else going on a day-to-day basis, like the Slacks, the calls, the distractions, things fall off on the wayside. And Xavier and the team have been just like tremendous at being able to like get those things taken care of for us, so we have like all of these flows kind of running all the time, whether it's for loyalty or subscribe and save, or just our welcome flow and how that's like evolved since I've been here. I know Tristan's seen it's changed quite a bit since then too, and it's just evolved into like this really excellent kind of flow for the business, etc. And it's been really cool to see the brand grow from that perspective. But Tristan, I know you've got some stuff as well, so how about it?
Yeah, you touched on a lot of it. And Patrick, you mentioned, the main milestone of, increasing the LTV and that repeat purchase rate. I think it points to a lot of different things that ultimately was what your team facilitated. Going even back to early of last year, I forget when we onboarded, but it was sometime around when you guys were being initially onboarded, and we just started doing content emails, and we were going away from promotions. Like we were basically a promotion brand. Every email was like, hey, get this X% off. And we moved into content emails, and I think that had a bigger effect on educating people on the product and understanding why I would buy X product on top of what they're already getting. Subscribe and save on top of that. Xavier's always in there, tacking on in a strategic way, ways that we can, increase our subscription rates and how many people are actually, utilizing that program. Another big program that I recently took over and have, taken ownership of is the loyalty program.
Mm-hmm.
And, we're setting up campaigns for early access and splitting them out between like 3 or 4 different campaigns for each loyalty tier. And, increasing that program is ultimately going to increase that LTV. And it's because of, you guys putting, all that together for us and facilitating all of those objectives and those plans and those processes. And then the last thing I'll touch on is the, Nate touched on a little bit too, was, Xavier putting together, the flows swiftly. Like I come into a meeting, I'm like, hey, we got to do this by this date. And I don't have to blank. He's got it done, before that deadline. And, we had talked about it a lot and, strategized about it, jammed on all the different, ways that we could, reach this metric. And, I didn't have to put in, that much effort of like, all the flows are in Figma. And I was like, all right, these are good to go. And, they're live before the time that I had given us to, do it by. So ode to the whole team and all these different programs and promoting them properly.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously we can only do our job if we're, supported by good partners. And, you guys have been instrumental in helping us to make sure we can be getting stuff done quick. So it's been a pleasure, working with you guys. My last question is just around like, what would you say to someone that's, potentially in your shoes or considering working with us?
You go first, Nate, because I'm thinking.
I'm trying to think of something that's not like, not corny or anything like that, but I've had a couple kind of referral calls with folks that I know, Patrick, you've wanted to get onboarded and stuff, and they've all gone like super well. When I think about it, and typically, like folks are like, would you work with them? Why, et cetera. And I always find that just coming back to a lot of the stuff that we've said on this call and trying to like make it as succinct as possible, but like, yeah, it's kind of a no-brainer to work with these guys. Like they're young, they're hungry, they're go-getters, they're smart as shit. Sorry, I didn't mean to cuss.
No, please.
They're smart as hell, and just they know the space, front and back. And I think for what it's worth, not to go in on a totally separate subject, but we use TVG for our CRM needs and our managing all of our emails and things like that. And I know there's more than meets the eye to TVG as well. And we haven't had a chance to even experience like all that there is to offer from TVG. But again, like you guys have a very good, solid team. I don't know if we even know everybody on the team, but you guys do a tremendous job. And there's no reason for me to there's nothing that I could say that would be like negative about TVG when it comes down to it. Because if I were to go anywhere else, any number of places, I would the first people I would call is TVG to help manage our email program.
I appreciate that. That was awesome. Tristan, I don't want to cut you off. Sorry.
Yeah. It kind of goes back to, the initial calls that we had. And when we were thinking about transitioning, we had, set up several different calls with different companies. And as soon as we got on call with TVG and finished the call, me and Nate were ecstatic. It was like, pretty much immediately we were like, yeah, this is the right fit. So it's like, you see it, in the first call, and then you'll see it, once you start working with them. You can put a lot of trust into TVG to help you reach the objectives of what you're trying to do in CRM, loyalty, or email, and all the other services, that they offer that we haven't explored quite yet. So, it was a no-brainer.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Awesome. Well, this has been fantastic. Like I said, really appreciate working with you guys. It's been a pleasure. I appreciate all the kind words today. And if anyone wants to obviously check out Gorilla Mind who's watching this, and definitely if you're going to buy from Gorilla Mind, make sure you buy through their emails, opt in and buy through the emails for us and pump our stats. But yeah, no, I appreciate it, guys, and thank you for jumping on today.